living color from the Radio What Studios. And this is my podcast, What Makes You Smarter. It's an extension of the RadioWhat.com internet radio station that I've been running for quite some time. And if you need DJ services, where do you go? DJLittleRock.com. Check availability and get a free price quote. And maybe you can have me at your next event. I like to party with the people. Make your next thing a big one. Also, if you'd like to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Now, on with the show. Today on the program, 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. 10 things you need to know today. Number 1, Michelle Obama headlines first night of Democrats' virtual convention. Democrats launched their virtual presidential nominating convention on Monday night with sharp criticism of President Trump. In her keynote speech, former First Lady Michelle Obama said Trump had left the strong economy he inherited from former President Barack Obama, quote, in shambles, end quote, and emboldened, quote, torch-bearing white supremacist, end quote, with his divisive rhetoric, quote, Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country, end quote. She said, quote, he cannot meet this moment, end quote. Then, echoing what Trump said recently about COVID-19 deaths, she added, quote, it is what it is, end quote. Mrs. Obama said Americans must, quote, vote for Joe Biden like our lives depend on it, end quote. A theme hammered by other speakers, Senator Bernie Sanders, Independent Vermont, and former Ohio Governor John Kasich, a Republican, urged voters to set aside ideological differences to beat Trump. This is according to the Washington Post and the New York Times. Number 2, UNC cancels in-person classes after 1 week. The University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill announced Monday that it is canceling in-person undergraduate classes and switching to remote learning exclusively by Wednesday following a coronavirus outbreak on campus just 1 week into the fall term. UNC, a public university with 30,000 students, was one of the biggest universities in the nation to opt for in-person classes, despite stubbornly high rates of COVID-19 infections in the state and across the country. Administrators said its positivity rate in COVID-19 tests has risen to 13.6% by Sunday, up from 2.8% a week earlier. The news came as colleges around the country scrambled to respond to coronavirus clusters that are underscoring the risk of infection as young people return to close quarters on campus. This is according to CNBC and ABC News. Number 3, ex-CIA officer accused of spying for China. Federal authorities have charged 15-year CIA veteran Alexander Yuk Ching Ma of Honolulu with selling U.S. secrets to China. According to court documents, Ma worked for the CIA for 22 years, retiring in 1989. 12 years after his retirement, he, quote, disclosed a substantial amount of highly classified national defense information, end quote, to at least 5 officers of China's Ministry of State Security in a Hong Kong hotel room. The secrets he divulged concerned the CIA's internal organization, covert communication methods, and the identities of CIA officers and informants, prosecutors said. He also allegedly copied classified documents concerning guided missile systems and other secrets and gave them to his Chinese handlers. This is according to NBC News. Number 4, states plan to sue over USPS cutbacks. More than a dozen states plan to sue the Trump administration as early as this week over cutbacks at the U.S. Postal Service that could delay mail-in voting in November. Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh said Monday, quote, we are taking Quote, we are talking with other AG offices and expecting to take action soon, end quote, Frost said, adding that 15 to 20 Democratic attorneys general are reviewing legal arguments under consideration in one or more lawsuits. President Trump said last week he opposes agreeing to Democrats' demand for Postal Service funding in a coronavirus relief package because he said that they wanted to pay for universal mail in voting. Trump denied his position amounted to election tampering and voter disenfranchisement. Quote, no, we're not tampering, end quote. Trump told Fox News, quote, we want to make it run for less money, much better, always taking care of our postal workers, end quote. This is according to Reuters. Number 5, conservation push helps California avoid anticipated blackouts. California utility officials said they managed to avoid rolling blackouts that had been expected to affect more than 3 million homes on Monday thanks to conservation efforts. The California Independent System Operator on Monday night rescinded an emergency declaration issued over the weekend. Although an ongoing heat wave is continuing to overburden the state's electric grid as Californians rely on air conditioners to stay cool. Pacific Gas and Electric warned that brief outages have helped ease the pressure could continue through Thursday. But CISO President Steve Burberich said that with, quote, continued help from California residents in conserving energy, much like today, we can reduce the risk of power outages, end quote. Earlier in the day, Governor Gavin Newsom, Democrat, called the severe power shortages, quote, unacceptable, end quote, and promised an investigation. This is according to the Los Angeles Times and SF Gates. Number 6, Trump administration finalizes plan for Arctic refuge drilling. The Trump administration on Monday finalized its plan to let energy companies drill for oil and gas in Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. The government is paving the way to issue decades-long leases in the pristine wilderness area before the end of President Trump's term. The energy industry and Alaska Governor Michael Dunleavy, Republican, said allowing drilling in the refuge will create jobs and benefit the economy of a state dependent on the industry. Environmental organizations slammed the plan as a gift to oil companies that would devastate the refuge's unique ecosystem and harmed native people. Interior Secretary David Bernhardt said the government could start selling oil and gas leases by the end of the year, and production in ANWR could start in 8 years, boosting U.S. energy independence. This is according to Reuters and CNN. Number 7, flurry of polls show Biden's lead over Trump narrowing. Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden entered his virtual nominating convention with a narrowing poll lead over President Trump, according to 3 newly released surveys. A CNN poll showed the sharpest shift, with Biden's lead shrinking to just 4 percentage points, 50% to 46%, down from a 14-point lead in June. In 15 battleground states, Biden led by 1 point. A Washington Post ABC News poll released Monday showed Biden with a 12-point lead, down from a 15-point advantage in the same poll in July. The Wall Street Journal NBC News poll gave Biden a 9-point lead, down from 11 points last month. Trump polls badly on his response to the COVID-19 pandemic, but narrowly leads Biden on the economy and crime. Biden leads on all other issues. This is according to CNN and The Washington Post. Number 8, NASDAQ surges to record with boost from big tech. The NASDAQ rose by 1% on Monday to close at a record high thanks to a surge by technology stocks that have made huge gains as Americans increased their independence on the internet during the coronavirus crisis. NVIDIA jumped by 6.7% after 2 analysts raised their price targets for the chip maker. The surge gave a big boost to both the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, which continued to move closer to record levels it hit in February. The Nasdaq was the first of the three main U.S. indexes to recover the losses it suffered due to the coronavirus, as Amazon, Netflix, and other companies benefited from a boom in streaming entertainment, as well as remote work and learning under coronavirus lockdowns. Quote, tech is the only trade, end quote, said Jake Dollarhide, Chief Executive Officer of Longbow Asset Management in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is according to CNBC and Reuters. Number 9, judge blocks Trump administration bid to limit transgender health protections. U.S. Judge Frederick Block on Monday rejected a Trump administration push to roll back protections for transgender patients against discrimination by healthcare providers and health insurance companies. Block said a rule due to take effect Tuesday that was finalized by the Department of Health and Human Services Office for Civil Rights in mid-June appeared to be incompatible with a subsequent Supreme Court ruling that employers can't discriminate against transgender people. Quote, when the Supreme Court announces a major decision, it seems a sensible thing to pause and reflect on the decision's impact, end quote, Judge Block wrote. Quote, since HHS has been unwilling to take that path voluntarily, the court now imposes it, end quote. An HHS Office for Civil Rights spokesperson said the agency was disappointed in the judge's decision. This is according to the New York Times. Number 10, 2 suspects charged with murder of Run DMC's Jam Master Jay. Prosecutors on Monday announced 2 men have been indicted in connection with the 2002 killing of Run DMC's Jam Master Jay. Ronald Washington and Carl Jordan Jr. were charged with murder while engaged in drug trafficking almost 2 decades after the DJ was shot and killed in a recording studio in Queens. Questions surrounding Jam Master Jay's killing have remained unanswered for years, but prosecutors alleged on Monday that Washington and Jordan broke into his studio and, quote, murdered him in cold blood, end quote, after he threatened to cut them out of a, quote, multi-kilogram, multi-state narcotics transaction, end quote. Washington was already in prison for robbery prior to the indictment, while Jordan was arrested on Sunday. This is according to the New York Times and CNN. That's 10 things you need to know today for Tuesday, August 18th, 2020. Thank you so much for listening. This has been What Makes You Smarter. That was crazy about that Run DMC thing. Jam Master Jay might finally get some justice. Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, most of the news is bad, as usual. Hopefully you have some good news. Drop me some comments. Let me know what you're up to. Everything good? Is anything good? I know there's some good. And I keep a smile on my face. I keep a cheerful outlook. And hopefully you do as well. Also, if you want to tell me about that cheerful outlook, you want to tell your story or hear the stories of others, I encourage you to check out my other podcast, What Makes You Famous. Find it everywhere using the hashtag What Makes You Famous. Also, something new, KeysDAN Gaming. Find it on Facebook, KeysDAN Gaming. Also on Twitch, twitch.tv/KeysDAN. Yeah, watch me do some gaming. Things to do while you're locked down on quarantine. Why not? All right. That's it for me. It's KeysDAN, RadioWhat.com, DJLittleRock.com. Peace. I'm out of here.